The deep space vessel Pathfinder moved slowly through the empty black between stars. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main screen. For 3 years, they had explored this sector without finding signs of intelligent life. Until today. "Captain, I'm picking up a signal," said Lisa Morgan, her fingers moving quickly across her communication panel. "It's not random. There's a pattern." Daniel walked to her station. "Can you decode it?" "Working on it now, sir." Lisa's eyes narrowed as she studied the data. It's an invitation." The crew gathered around as Lisa played the translated message. A soft, musical voice spoke in slightly accented English. "Greetings, explorers of Earth. We welcome you to our home. Please follow this signal to meet us." "Could be a trap," said Security Chief Amy Peterson, her hand resting on her sidearm. Daniel nodded. "Could be. But this is why we came out here." He turned to the pilot. "Follow the signal, but keep weapons ready." The Pathfinder changed course, following the mysterious message to a small, rocky planet orbiting a red dwarf star. As they entered orbit, they saw lights arranged in perfect geometric patterns on the surface. "Those aren't natural," said Science Officer Frank Holloway, adjusting his glasses. "Someone built those." When the landing team stepped onto the planet's surface, they were met by tall figures that seemed to glow from within. The aliens had 6 limbs and large, complex eyes that changed color as they moved. "We are the Vorith," said one, stepping forward. "We have watched your kind for some time." Daniel tried to hide his surprise. "We are honored to meet you. I am Captain Daniel Carter of Earth." The Vorith led them to a city built of crystal and light. Everything glowed softly, casting no shadows. The aliens moved with grace through spaces that seemed too dark for human eyes to navigate easily. "Your species has progressed quickly," said the Vorith leader, who called himself Czar. "But you have much to learn. We can help you advance." Over the next week, the humans learned about Vorith technology. The aliens seemed especially interested in human biology. "Your eyes are fascinating," said a Vorith scientist named Vel. "So limited, yet you accomplish much." Frank Holloway noticed how often the Vorith mentioned human limitations. During dinner on the 3rd night, he whispered to Daniel, "Have you noticed they keep testing our vision?" Daniel had noticed. The Vorith kept dimming lights during meetings, watching how the humans stumbled while they moved easily. "We can see across 12 light spectrums," Czar explained when Daniel asked. "Your kind sees only 3. It must be like living partially blind." That night, Frank came to Daniel's quarters with data on his tablet. "Captain, I've been recording their questions. 80% relate to our weaknesses, our vision, our hearing, our strength in different gravities. They're studying us," Amy said from the doorway, "but not for friendship." Daniel looked at the information. "Maybe they're just curious." "Maybe," Amy said. "But my job is to worry. They keep asking about Earth's defenses and our colonies." Lisa joined them, her face serious. "I caught something in their language when they didn't know I was listening. They called us potential resources." Daniel thought for a long moment. "We'll accept their invitation to visit their homeworld, but we'll also send a message to Earth with everything we've learned. And we'll be careful." As the Pathfinder prepared to follow the Vorith ships deeper into their territory, Frank stood with Daniel on the observation deck. "Do you think we can trust them?" Frank asked. Daniel watched the alien ships glowing against the darkness of space. "I don't know, but they're hiding something behind those friendly smiles and offers of help." "What do we do?" "We learn," Daniel said. "We watch, and we remember that on Earth, even animals that seem harmless can sometimes be the most dangerous." Neither man noticed the small device the Vorith had planted on their ship, silently reporting every word back to their leaders. 6 months passed since the first meeting with the Vorith. Earth had established trade and exchange programs with the aliens. 5 human colonies now had Vorith visitors who shared technology and medical knowledge. Captain Daniel Carter sat in his office on the Pathfinder, reading reports when his screen flashed red. "Captain, to the bridge," Emergency, came Lisa Morgan's voice through the speakers. Daniel rushed to the bridge. What's happening? We've lost contact with New Haven Colony, Lisa said, her face pale. All signals stopped 30 minutes ago. Could be equipment failure, Daniel suggested, but his stomach tightened with worry. No, sir. We also lost contact with Horizon Base yesterday and Proxima Station 3 days ago. Daniel stared at the map showing 3 human colonies now silent. All had Vorith visitors. Send a message to Earth Command. We're going to check on New Haven. 2 days later, the Pathfinder arrived at New Haven. The planet looked peaceful from orbit. No response to our calls, Lisa reported. Any signs of attack? Daniel asked. Amy Peterson checked her security scanners. No debris, no radiation signatures. It's like everyone just disappeared. That's when the Vorith ship appeared. It was larger than the ones they had seen before, with pulsing lights along its hull. They're hailing us, Lisa said. Czar's face appeared on screen. Captain Carter, we detected the same loss of communication and came to help. Daniel studied the alien's face. 3 colonies, Czar, all with your people present. A concerning coincidence, Czar agreed. We should investigate together. Daniel didn't fully trust the Vorith, but he needed their help. We'll send down a joint team. The landing party included Daniel, Amy, Frank, and 3 security officers, along with 4 Vorith, including Czar. They arrived at the colony's main square to find it empty. No bodies, no signs of fighting. Spread out in pairs, Daniel ordered. 1 human, 1 Vorith. Amy paired with Czar and headed toward the communication center. Inside, they found chairs overturned and coffee cups still half full. Whatever happened was sudden, Amy said, weapon ready. She found the security camera controls and played back the last recordings. The video showed a normal day. Then the Vorith visitors gathered in the town center. They raised their arms, releasing a strange light that made the humans freeze in confusion. Then the recording went dark. Amy downloaded the video to her device, pretending to check other systems. Nothing here, she lied to Czar. Let's check the power plant. Meanwhile, Frank had discovered strange devices planted around the colony. He secretly pocketed one when his Vorith partner wasn't looking. Daniel was checking the administrative building when Lisa's voice came through his earpiece. Captain, I'm still on the ship. I've intercepted communications between the Vorith. They're speaking their language, but I can translate some words. Go ahead, Daniel whispered. They're saying blind prey and easy hunt when referring to humans, and something about the next phase. Daniel felt cold fear spread through his chest. Get the team back to the shuttle. Now. As the humans gathered at the landing pad, Czar approached. Did you find anything, Captain? Nothing conclusive, Daniel lied. We'll need to check the other colonies. Back on the Pathfinder, Amy showed everyone the security footage. Frank examined the device he had taken. It's some kind of light emitter, he explained. It produces frequencies humans can't see, but would overwhelm our visual processing. They hunt us in the dark, Amy said grimly, using our own limitations against us. Lisa looked up from her console, face white with fear. Captain, 6 Vorith ships just appeared in orbit. They're powering weapons. Evasive maneuvers. Daniel ordered. Get us out of here. The Pathfinder shook as the first Vorith shots hit their shields. The deception was over. The hunt had begun. Shields at 40%, shouted Engineer Joe Wilson as another blast rocked the Pathfinder. Captain Daniel Carter gripped his command chair. Can we jump to light speed? Engines damage, Joe replied. We need 5 minutes to restart them. Daniel knew they didn't have 5 minutes. The 6 Vorith ships surrounded them, their weapons cutting through the Pathfinder's defenses like they were paper. They're targeting our power systems, Amy Peterson said, checking the damage reports. They want us disabled, not destroyed. Lisa Morgan looked up from her station. Captain, they're sending a message. Surrender and prepare to be boarded. Daniel's mind raced. If the Vorith wanted to board, they might have a chance. All hands to battle stations. Prepare for boarding. Security teams to all entry points. The ship jolted violently, throwing crew members to the floor. The lights flickered, then went completely dark. Emergency power, Daniel ordered. Red backup lights came on, casting weak shadows across the bridge. Then those lights failed too, leaving them in total darkness. They've cut all power. Joe's voice came from somewhere in the blackness. Even the backups. Amy's voice was calm in the darkness. Night vision goggles from the weapons locker. Now, before anyone could move, a strange hissing sound filled the bridge. Daniel felt his eyes water, and his throat burn. Gas, Frank Holloway shouted. Everyone, cover your... His voice cut off. Daniel tried to reach for his emergency mask, but his limbs felt heavy. As he lost consciousness, he saw glowing figures moving through the darkness with perfect ease. Amy Peterson woke up coughing. She was in a maintenance tunnel, with Lisa Morgan kneeling beside her. "Stay quiet," Lisa whispered. "They're still on the ship." Amy's training kicked in immediately. "How did we get here?" "Joe pulled us into the tunnel when the gas hit. You, me, and Frank. He had a portable oxygen mask." "Where is he now?" "Looking for more survivors." Lisa's voice shook. "The Vorith took most of the crew, including the captain." Amy checked her belt. Her weapon was gone. "What happened?" "They boarded after cutting power. They can see perfectly in the dark, better than our night vision can. It was like they were hunting blind animals." Frank Holloway crawled toward them through the narrow tunnel. Joe found Dr. Garcia hiding in the medical bay. "She's hurt but alive." Soon after, Joe Wilson returned with Sofia Garcia. The doctor had a cut on her forehead, but was conscious. "They took everyone else," Joe reported grimly. "I saw them loading people onto their ships. Some were in some kind of stasis pods." Amy took charge. "We need to assess our situation. What do we have?" They had Joe's toolkit, Frank's tablet, Lisa's portable communicator, Sophia's medical bag, and Amy's backup knife. Not enough to fight an army of advanced aliens. "The good news," Joe said, "is they don't know about these maintenance tunnels. They run throughout the ship but don't show on main schematics. The Vorith think they've captured everyone." Lisa added, "I heard them talking. They called it a successful hunt." Frank opened his tablet. "Before everything went dark, I was analyzing that device I found. The Vorith use some kind of bioillumination that our eyes can't detect. That's how they see in what we consider total darkness." "Why are they doing this?" Sophia asked, applying medicine to her wound. "Sport," Amy said, her voice hard. "They hunt species they consider lesser than themselves. Prey that can't see them coming." Lisa looked frightened. "What can we possibly do against them?" "They have superior technology, better senses, and our friends as hostages." Amy's face was grim in the dim light of Frank's tablet. "We adapt. They think humans are easy prey because we can't see in the dark." She pulled out her knife. "Let's show them what happens when humans are hunted." Joe nodded. "They've never hunted humans before. They don't know what we're capable of." "First," Amy said, "we need to understand our enemy better. Frank, tell me everything you learned about their biology." "Joe, I need you to find a way to detect their bioillumination." The small group huddled together in the dark tunnel, planning how 5 humans would take back a ship from creatures who thought hunting in darkness gave them all the advantage. For 3 days, the 5 survivors moved through the maintenance tunnels of the Pathfinder like ghosts. The Vorith still patrolled the ship, searching for anything valuable before they abandoned it. "They're getting ready to leave," Joe Wilson whispered as the group gathered in a small junction of tunnels they now called home base. Amy Peterson nodded. "Which means they'll either destroy the ship or leave it drifting. We need to act soon." Frank Holloway had barely slept. He'd been working nonstop on his tablet and some equipment Joe had gathered. "I think I've got something," he said, holding up what looked like a pair of welding goggles with extra parts attached. What is it? Lisa Morgan asked. I modified these goggles to detect the Vorith's bioillumination. The aliens emit light in a spectrum our eyes can't naturally see. These should let us see them in the dark. Joe examined the device. You built this from spare parts. Frank shrugged. I had to connect it to my tablet for processing power. It's not pretty, but it should work. We need more pairs, Amy said. With what Joe found in storage locker B7, I can make 3 more. Dr. Sofia Garcia had been studying samples of Vorith blood she'd collected from a small skirmish Amy had with one of the aliens. Their biology is fascinating, she said. Their eyes have extremely sensitive photoreceptors, much more sensitive than ours. Amy looked up. That could be useful. What happens if they're exposed to very bright light? It would likely cause them pain, maybe even temporary blindness. This gave Joe an idea. We could modify the ship's emergency flares, create light grenades. For the next 2 days, they prepared. Frank built more goggles. Joe created weapons from spare parts and tools. Sofia helped identify Vorith vulnerabilities. Lisa worked on accessing the ship's systems remotely. We need to test these goggles, Amy said eventually. I'll go. Not alone, Lisa insisted. Amy nodded. Joe, you've had combat training, right? 4 years in Earth's Defense Force before becoming an engineer. You're with me then. They crawled through the tunnels to an access point near the cargo bay. Amy put on the goggles and almost gasped. Through them, she could see a soft purple glow moving around the room. A Vorith guard. It works, she whispered to Joe, who wore the second pair. The alien moved with confidence, obviously believing it was alone in the darkness. Amy studied its movements, noting how it checked certain areas but ignored others. They're not thorough, she whispered. They're overconfident. Back at their hideout, Amy began training the others. We have advantages they don't expect, she explained. They think we're helpless in the dark, but humans have survived by adapting throughout our history. She taught them to move silently, to feel their way when needed, to use their other senses. Smell the air changes when a Vorith is nearby, like ozone before a storm. Listen for the slight clicking sound they make when excited. Lisa managed to hack into what remained of the ship's systems. I can control parts of the ventilation system, she reported, and some door functions in sections B through D. Joe showed them the weapons he created. Light grenades made from emergency flares, sharp tools wrapped to form makeshift knives, and a modified welding torch that could shoot a concentrated beam of light. We need to learn their patrol patterns, Amy said. Then we'll set a trap. Frank nodded. I've been mapping their movements based on our observations. They're most active in the command center, engineering, and the areas where they're holding our people. Can we free the captives? Sofia asked. Amy looked at their limited resources. Not yet. First, we need to thin their numbers and gather better weapons. We're really going to fight them? Lisa asked nervously. There are only 5 of us. Amy's face was determined in the dim light. They see us as prey. They've never faced prey that fights back systematically. She checked the knife in her belt. They hunt in the dark because they think it gives them all the advantage. They're wrong. Joe nodded. They hunt for sport. We'll hunt to survive. That night, they set their first trap in Corridor B4, using sound to attract a lone Vorith guard. When the alien investigated, it found what appeared to be a human cowering in fear. It was only a jacket stuffed with spare parts, but by the time the Vorith realized this, Amy had already dropped from the ceiling panel above, her knife finding the alien's throat. The hunt has begun, she whispered as the Vorith's purple glow faded away. Word spread quickly among the Vorith that one of their hunters was missing. Amy watched through her modified goggles as a group of aliens gathered in the mess hall, their purple glow agitated as they clicked and hummed to each other. They're confused, Lisa translated, listening through a small device pressed against the air duct. They can't believe one of their elite hunters was killed by blind prey. Joe grinned in the darkness. Good. Confused hunters make mistakes. Over the next 2 days, the humans struck 3 more times. Each attack was carefully planned. They never used the same method twice. A Vorith found itself trapped in a storage locker after following a sound lure. Another walked into a tripwire that triggered one of Joe's light grenades, the intense flash leaving it screaming on the floor until Amy's knife ended its misery. The aliens grew more cautious, moving in pairs, but this only made them more predictable. They're falling back to defend the bridge and the holding cells where they keep the captives, Frank reported after scouting with his goggles. I counted 14 Vorith still on board. 4 are guarding the prisoners. Amy nodded. Time for Phase 2. We need better weapons. The security armory was heavily guarded, but Lisa had discovered a small weapons cache in the emergency station near the escape pods. The Vorith never found it, she explained. It's hidden behind a false panel. Amy and Joe moved carefully through the dark corridors. With their goggles, they could see 2 Vorith patrolling ahead, their purple glow moving back and forth. Wait for them to separate, Amy whispered. When one alien moved around the corner, Joe activated a small device he had built. It made a soft whimpering sound like an injured human, coming from a side corridor. The Vorith hesitated, then moved toward the sound, its hand weapon ready. It seemed excited by the prospect of finding a helpless human. It never saw Joe's modified welding torch. A beam of concentrated light hit it directly in its compound eyes. The alien dropped its weapon and clutched at its face, making a high-pitched keening sound. Amy was already moving. She grabbed the fallen alien weapon and fired it at the second Vorith as it came running to help its partner. The weapon discharged a pulse of energy that knocked the alien off its feet. These aren't designed to kill, Amy said, examining the weapon. They're meant to stun and capture, like hunting tools. Joe nodded grimly. They really do see us as just game animals. With the path clear, they reached the hidden weapons cache. Inside were 4 standard-issue stun pistols, a pulse rifle, and best of all, 2 pairs of military-grade night vision goggles. Much better than our homemade versions, Joe said, trying them on. When they returned to their hideout, Sophia had news. I've analyzed the Vorith weapon Amy brought back. It emits a neural disruptor designed for human brains. It confuses our vision centers specifically. Can we modify it? Amy asked. I think so. If we reverse the frequency, it might affect their visual processing instead of ours. Meanwhile, Lisa had been working on the ship's communication system. I've bypassed the damage to the main array. I can send a short burst message to Earth, but we'll only get 1 shot. The Vorith will detect it immediately. Amy thought for a moment. Send them everything we've learned about the Vorith. Their weaknesses, their hunting patterns, the way they see. As Lisa prepared the message, Frank looked at the weapons they had gathered. We still don't have enough firepower to take on 14 Vorith directly. Amy smiled. We're not going to fight them directly. We're going to make them fight each other. She outlined her plan. They would use the ship's ventilation system to pump in a gas Sophia had created from chemicals in the medical bay. It would mask human scent completely. Then we'll use their own weapons and lights against them. In the confusion, they'll see movement and fire at anything that moves. Joe nodded. They'll shoot each other. And we'll be able to free the captives, Frank added. Lisa finished coding the message to Earth. It's ready. Amy took a deep breath. Send it. And then let's show these aliens who the real hunters are. Lisa pressed the transmit button. Somewhere in the darkness of the ship, alarms began to sound as the Vorith detected the transmission. The final hunt had begun. Alarms blared throughout the Pathfinder. The Vorith were on high alert, their purple forms moving rapidly through the corridors as Amy watched through her night vision goggles. They're gathering near the bridge, she reported to the others, just as we hoped. Joe finished connecting a series of tubes to the ventilation system. Gas distribution ready. Dr. Garcia's special blend will mask our scent completely. Lisa monitored her tablet. I've locked down all escape routes from sections D through E. They're contained in the forward areas of the ship. Frank handed out the weapons they had collected. Remember, these Vorith weapons have been modified to disrupt their vision instead of ours. One shot should blind them temporarily. Amy nodded. Let's move. Phase 1 starts now. Joe activated the gas system. A colorless, odorless mixture began pumping through selected vents into the areas where the Vorith had gathered. Give it 5 minutes to spread, Sophia said, checking her medical kit one last time. Then we move. Amy turned to the group. We stay together until we reach Junction B7. Then Lisa and Frank head for the prison section, while Joe, Sophia, and I create the diversion. 5 minutes later, they moved through the darkened corridors like shadows. The Vorith had cut main power weeks ago, but for once, the darkness was the humans' ally. With their night vision goggles and knowledge of the ship, they moved quickly and silently. They reached Junction B7 without incident. Lisa and Frank split off, heading toward the area where the captives were held. Amy led the others toward the bridge. Remember, she whispered to Joe and Sophia, we just need to create confusion, not engage them directly. They positioned themselves at 3 different entry points to the main corridor leading to the bridge. Through her goggles, Annie could see 8 Vorith moving about, their purple glow agitated as they tried to locate the source of the transmission to Earth. Annie gave the signal. Joe fired his modified Vorith weapon into the ceiling, where it hit a junction box. Sparks showered down, and emergency lights flickered on and off in a strobe-like pattern. The Vorith reacted immediately, their sensitive eyes pained by the flashing lights. In their confusion, they couldn't tell friend from foe. When Sophia fired her weapon from another direction, the aliens began shooting wildly. It's working, Joe whispered as 2 Vorith fired at each other, each thinking the other was a human attacker. Meanwhile, Lisa and Frank had reached the prison section. 4 Vorith guards stood outside a makeshift cell where the human captives were kept. Ready? Frank asked, holding up one of Joe's light grenades. Lisa nodded, aiming her weapon. Frank threw the grenade. It exploded in a blinding flash that sent the Vorith guards reeling backward, clutching at their eyes. Lisa fired rapidly, taking down 3 with precise shots. The 4th managed to fire back, but its aim was wild in its blindness. Frank ducked the shot and fired his own weapon. The last guard fell. Captain Carter, Lisa called as they forced open the cell door. It's Lisa Morgan and Frank Holloway. Inside, they found 20 crew members, including Captain Daniel. They were weak and confused, but alive. Lisa, Daniel's voice was hoarse. What's happening? We're taking back the ship, sir, she said, helping him to his feet. Amy Peterson is leading a diversion. Frank handed out night vision goggles to those strong enough to help. We need to move quickly. The diversion won't last long. Back near the bridge, the Vorith had fallen into complete disarray. 3 were down from friendly fire, and 2 more had been taken out by Amy's team. Fall back, Amy ordered. Phase 2 complete. As they retreated, Joe set off his remaining light grenades, adding to the chaos. The Vorith were shooting at shadows, at each other, at nothing. The 2 groups met at Junction B7, as planned. Captain Daniel, though weak, was alert enough to understand the situation. Well done, Peterson, he said. Now let's get to the emergency shuttle and get off this ship. As they hurried toward the shuttle bay, an angry roar echoed through the corridors. Through her goggles, Amy saw a massive Vorith figure moving toward them. Czar, the leader who had first welcomed them with false friendship. You go ahead, Joe said suddenly, checking his weapon. I'll hold him off. Joe, no. Amy began. Someone has to. The shuttle needs time to power up. He handed her his tablet. Get our people home, Amy. Make sure Earth knows what these things really are. Before anyone could stop him, Joe turned and ran toward the approaching Vorith, firing as he went. The last they saw of Engineer Joe Wilson was his small human figure facing down the much larger alien. buying them the time they needed to escape. 3 months passed since the survivors of the Pathfinder escaped on the emergency shuttle. They had drifted for 2 weeks before being rescued by an Earth patrol ship. Their message had been received. Now, Captain Daniel Carter stood on the observation deck of the Earth battleship Defender, watching as a fleet of 20 human warships moved into formation. His body had healed, but the scars on his mind remained fresh. "Captain," Admiral Claire Donovan approached, her uniform crisp and her eyes sharp. "Are you ready for the briefing?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, Admiral. Though I still find it hard to believe how quickly Earth responded. Your information about the Vorith gave us time to prepare. Without it, they might have begun hunting our colonies one by one, and we wouldn't have known what we were facing." They walked to the command center where Amy Peterson was waiting. After their return, she had been promoted to commander and put in charge of special tactics against the Vorith. "The fleet is ready, Admiral," Amy reported. "All ships are equipped with the new visual systems." On a large screen, images showed Earth soldiers wearing advanced helmets with special visors that could detect Vorith bioillumination. They carried weapons designed to target the aliens' sensitive visual systems. "We've located the main Vorith fleet near the Proxima colony," Admiral Donovan explained. "Intelligence suggests they're preparing for more hunts." Daniel looked at the tactical display. "They won't expect us to fight back effectively. Their whole culture is built on the belief that species who can't see in their spectrum are natural prey. A mistake they'll only make once," Amy said grimly. The Earth fleet moved through space quickly and quietly, using technology developed from studying the Vorith devices. As they approached Proxima, they detected 10 Vorith ships in orbit. "They haven't seen us yet," reported the tactical officer. "Our new stealth systems are working." Admiral Donovan nodded to Daniel. "Captain Carter, would you like to deliver our message?" Daniel stepped forward. "Open a channel to the Vorith command ship." On the main screen, Czar's face appeared, showing surprise when he recognized Daniel. "Impossible," the alien leader said. "You were captured." "We escaped," Daniel replied calmly. "And now we've returned." Czar's compound eyes shifted colors in what they now knew was amusement. "With a few small ships. Your species never learns." "Actually, we learned very quickly," Daniel said as the Earth fleet decloaked around the Vorith ships, surrounding them completely. "That's what you never understood about humans. We adapt." The Vorith leader's amusement changed to alarm. "How are you tracking our ships? You can't see in our spectrum." "We built tools to see what our eyes couldn't naturally detect," Amy said, stepping into view, "just like we've always done throughout our history." Admiral Donovan took over. "Here are our terms, Czar. Your people will release all human captives from all colonies. You will withdraw from human space, and you will never hunt our kind again." "Why would we agree to this?" Czar demanded, though his confidence was clearly shaken. "Because now we can hunt in the dark too," Daniel said quietly. "And unlike you, we don't hunt for sport. We hunt to protect our own." To demonstrate, the Earth ships fired precision shots that disabled the weapons on 2 Vorith vessels without destroying them. "Your next hunting grounds are in the Andromeda sector," Admiral Donovan said. "I suggest you go there and never return to human space." After a long silence, Czar agreed to the terms. Later, as the Vorith ships departed under Earth escort, Amy stood with Daniel watching them leave. "Do you think they've learned their lesson?" she asked. Daniel thought about Joe Wilson's sacrifice, about the colonies that had been attacked, about the fear in the eyes of the rescued captives. "They thought they were superior because they could see in the dark," he said. "They never understood that humans don't accept our limitations. We overcome them. That's always been our greatest strength." Amy nodded. "They laughed at humans in the dark. Until we hunted," Daniel finished, watching as the stars became visible again where the Vorith ships had been.